All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are officially here. The 2024 NFL season is upon us, kicking off on Thursday between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. And that means fantasy football is back. We are going to be here all year long, giving you guys what you need to not only bring home the dub each and every week, but to bring home that fantasy football championship. And probably the hardest position to evaluate, and maybe the most important if you're still playing with it, is the kickers. Yes, kickers are people too. We care about kickers here on The Catch. So I'm going to go through, give you some of my must-start kickers this week. A lot of streaming options. There's a couple of guys that are going to be dogs no matter what, but available guys for you to go out there, pick up, add to your rosters, because we know how many fantasy games are decided by 1 to 5 points, and we're going to try and maximize those points with those kickers. Those are free points we got to get there. So maximizing your roster and point put out each and every week. But let's get started into it. Kicker I really like, my favorite kicker that you can stream this week. Okay, Dolphins kicker Jason Sanders against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Only 69% rostered, so he should be available out there in some of your leagues. And Sanders had a really great 2023. 58 of 59 from the PAT, so we're picking up those free points when they're available. 24 of 28 from field goals, but he was 13 of 13 inside of 40 and 5 of 7 from 50 plus. That's big, man. Those 50 plus yard kicks giving you those extra points, because that can swing a week where you only get 3 to 4 points from your kicker to a week with 8 or 9 points. That's a huge difference there if we're getting a couple of 50-yard bombs out there. And Sanders is one of the most consistent 50-yard plus guys. And we know about this Dolphins offense. They can move the football up and down the field. They're an explosive offense. You want to have a guy out there who's going to be kicking extra points freely when his team scores touchdowns. And if they do get stopped, he's almost automatic all the time. And this is a great matchup for the Dolphins this week. They got the Jags coming into town, and the Jaguars defense ranked 19th last year. They were kind of all over the place. Nothing really special. This should be a high-scoring affair, and we're checking the weather reports, and it's looking like it's going to be a hot one in South Beach. 89 feels like 100. We've seen those thermometer charts on the sidelines in Miami, and the heat can get out of control. A little bit of gust, 8-mile-an-hour winds, and there's a 40% chance of scattered thunderstorms. So maybe we get a little bit of a delay. Maybe there's some moisture in the air, but I'm expecting this football to fly through the uprights. We saw the Dolphins come out and pour it on last year. Early in September, they scored points left and right. I think Sanders is a guy who's going to be available in a good chunk of your leagues. Put him out there, get him in your starting lineup right away. All right, my next up, here's a guy who's probably not out there for you, but if you have him, I'm feeling excellent this week. It's my man, Evan McPherson, Money McPherson. I think he's going to be the best kicker potentially all throughout the fantasy season. I mean, what can you say? He's just absolute money. 40 from 40 from PATs in 2023, 26 of 31 on the field goals, but 19 of 19 inside of 50 yards. He's making all his kicks inside of the 50 yards. That's what you want to see, especially with a Bengals offense that should be so much better this season with Joe Burrow returning. We got to get the Jamar Chase contract situation figured out, but man, he's awesome. And he kicked 12 50-yarders last year, went 7 of 12 from 50 plus. That's a lot of 50-yard makes. Most leagues, you don't really get dinged if you miss a 50-yarder, but you do get those bonus points. That's what you want to see. And it's really the matchup this week. McPherson and the Bengals going against the New England Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to be the worst team in football this year. Their defense ranked 22 last year. They get rid of Matthew Judon. I know he was hurt last season, but he's out. Bring in new head coach Gerard Mayo. I think this is just a recipe for disaster. I know the Bengals sometimes get out slow week one in early season games, but that's what maybe you kind of want. They can move the ball, get into field goal range, don't necessarily punch it into the end zone, and McPherson knocks it home for you, picking up those easy points every single time inside of 50. And the weather should be beautiful in Cincinnati. It's going to be a little bit cooler, feels like 74, going to be in that 68 to low 70 range. Not really much wind. There could be a potential for some gusts. right now as we're looking at the weather report. Slow chance of rain. It should just be a gorgeous sunny day in Cincinnati. Lots of points on deck for the Bengals, and Money McPherson hammering it home, 99% rostered. If he is out there, please go get him because he could be your best kicker for the entire upcoming fantasy season. Okay, my next kicker up is Seahawks kicker Jason Myers against the Broncos. Only 71% rostered on Sleeper right now, so he should be out there for about a third of y'all. If he isn't, try and find a way to get him because this is going to be another team that I think is going to be super consistent in kicking field goals this year. 33 of 33 from the PAT last season and 35 of 42 field goals. 42 field goal attempts for Jason Myers last year. He was 19 of 20 inside of 40 yards, only 4 of 8 from 50 plus. So he's more of your consistent kicker, not going to really get you those big time score weeks, but he's going to be consistent in knocking home those field goals you need to make sure you don't lose any points and you pick up the free extra points and those 3 points on the field goals. But this is another really good matchup. Broncos defense was 17th last year, and they really thrived off of forcing turnovers. They didn't really do a good job of stopping anybody from scoring points. We saw Miami hang a 70 piece on them, and I like this new look Seattle Seahawks team. They're going to be much better defensively. They're going to have a lot more control of the ball. Seahawks offense going to have a lot more possessions. That means if you don't even fully believe in Geno Smith, he should be able to get you into field goal range. Myers knocks it home, and with a defensive coach, we're going to see a lot less of those going for it on fourth downs, being hyper aggressive, and a lot more of take the points and let my great defense protect those leagues. And those are the kind of kickers I like to target and look at. Defensive head coaches who will always take the points, or usually take the points, and let his defense protect leads. Because if we kick 4 field goals, that's a huge week for us from a kicking standpoint. And the weather in Seattle this time of the year, absolutely gorgeous. 74 degrees we're projecting, gonna feel like almost 80. A little bit of wind, no chance of rain. It should be an excellent day. And these are the kind of days you love to see early in the season. Jason Myers, this is a nice go get out there. 31% or 29% available on Sleeper. Go get him if you can. And we got a couple more big time kickers coming up, but 2 great streaming options coming up soon. Okay, one of my favorite kickers in the NFL, Jake Elliott of the Eagles, going against the Green Bay Packers in Brazil. Break out your Carnival attire in Sao Paulo. Elliott was one of the best kickers last year, 45 of 46 on the PATs, 30 of 32 from the field goals, 23 out of 24 inside of 50 last year, 7 of 8 from 50 plus, and including a 1-for-1 over 60 yards. So Elliott is your big time kicker. He's awesome from distance. This is the kind of guy who's going to give you a whole bunch of extra points, kicking those deep field goals. Only 85% rostered for a team that I think is going to score a lot of points this season. I'm really in on the Eagles offense. I think they're going to move the ball a lot more. Maybe we aren't going to rely on those QB sneaks, those tush pushes as much this year. And instead of going for those 4th and a yard and a half to 2 yards in field goal range, we're just going to trot Elliott out there, pick up our free points. I really like this pickup, not only for this week, but long-term for this season. At only 85% rostered, he's out there for some of you guys. Go pick him up. And the weather in Sao Paulo should be great. Should be great. In the 70s, it's going to be a Friday night game, our first Friday night game. And I don't know, ever. There's 0 chance of rain. And he's going against a Packers defense that really wasn't good last year, was the Achilles heel of this team. They bring in a new defensive coordinator. I'm not liking anything I'm hearing out of Packers camp. I think this is going to be a high-flying affair. Now, the weather and the air quality is a bit of a concern. There's some smog going on there. I'm not sure how that's going to affect the trajectory of the football. I mean, maybe it's going to soar through that thick stuff, or maybe it's going to slow it down. Could be interesting to look at. I haven't run the science behind the smog input. But another thing to look at here is elevation, 2,500 feet elevation in Sao Paulo. a lot higher than most of the places in America. That means the football is going to have a little bit more oomph behind it. And we know Nick Sirianni and the Eagles trust Elliott's leg. So we might see another 60-plus yard bomb from Elliott on Friday night. And that could easily win you a week if you're getting 6 points for a 60-yarder in some of your fantasy leagues. And if not, he'll hit home a couple 50-yarders, give you that big boost. But I like Elliott to have a big day. I think they kick a few field goals. And if you believe in Elliott as much as I do, head on over to Underdog. You go to our pick'ems, check out Jake Elliott. Over 1.5 field goals made on Friday, and it's juiced up a little bit. You can pair that with our free pick of the week, Travis Kelce, over half a receiving yard. Pair that up, get out a nice payday to pay back all your fantasy dues you just paid. Use the code CATCH. You get 50% deposit match up to $1,000 on Underdog Fantasy. That's the promo code The Catch when you sign up using that, and 50% deposit match up to $1,000. Bring home some of that, recoup some of your losses from all the fantasy leagues you signed up in. So I'm loving Jake Elliott, but now here's my two favorite streaming options this week. Okay, this man just got paid. Cameron Dicker the kicker against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Chargers got embarrassed by the Raiders last year, and I think Jim Harbaugh is going to have some vengeance coming into LA. And Dicker, only 36% rostered on Sleeper right now. Go get Dicker the kicker. He is my kicker in one of my fantasy leagues that has a kicker still. He's as solid as it comes. 35 of 35 from the PAT, 31 out of 33 on the field goals. Perfect inside of 50 last year. 24 for 24 and was 7 of 9 of 50 plus. So still really strong from that 50 plus bonus range, but perfect inside of that. He is as reliable as it comes. And the Chargers are going to be a lot better offensively, I think, this year. They were kind of a train wreck with Brandon Staley as their head coach. In comes Jim Harbaugh, another defensive head coach, a no-nonsense guy. He's going to run the football, kick field goals, take the points when you can, and Dicker is going to deliver every single time for you. I think that's huge. I'm in love with that number of perfect inside of 50 and perfect on the PATs. And let's not to forget, he's kicking indoors. They're at home this game against Vegas. Now, Vegas's defense is a little bit better than these other defenses. They ranked 8th last season, but I think a lot of that had to do with a game where they gave up 3 points on the game against the Vikings last year. Other than that, the Raiders defense kind of up and down. They have an excellent pass rush, but it's still a work in progress. We have a first-year head coach in Antonio Pierce. I think this is going to be a coaching mismatch. Now, if the Raiders can bow up, bend, don't break, which we saw a lot of last year, this is where we want our kickers to be. Take those points, not a hyper-aggressive head coach that's going to go for those 4th and 3s, 4th and 4s, inside field goal range. He's going to take the points when he can, and that's what you want when you're looking for kickers. It's all about the matchups, and this is an excellent matchup and a perfect, my favorite streaming option. He's going to be out there for most of you guys, but if you don't have any of these guys available, my last guy here, he's available in pretty much every league, and I think nobody really talks about him, but he was really, really solid as a rookie last year. Okay, it's Saints kicker Blake Grupe. I don't know how you say it, but nobody had this guy. 3% rostered, just 3% rostered on Sleeper, and he's playing the worst team in football, the Carolina Panthers, at home. Again, another guy who kicks indoors, not going to have to worry about the weather affecting him, but he was really good. Perfect from the PAT last year, 40 of 40 on extra points, and the Saints don't really have many touchdown opportunities. Now, he wasn't the best from the field goals, 30 of 37, but 16 of 18 inside of 40, 6 of 9 from 50 plus, so he was still pretty solid from that 50 plus yard range. And this is a team that kind of struggles to move the ball, but the Panthers defense ranked 30th last year. This defense is atrocious. I think we're going to see a little bit of ball movement from the Saints, but in typical Derek Carr Saints fashion, struggle when we get into the red zone, get stopped at like the 10 or 12 yard line, and they're going to settle for the field goals, make all the fans in New Orleans hyper upset, very angry, but we don't care about that. All we care about is getting those field goals made, and if the Saints do find a way to get into the end zone, he'll tack on the free point for you. every single time. So we could get into a little bit of trouble if they're going to trot him out there in that 47 to 48 yard range. But I have enough faith in the Saints offense. You have guys like Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara is ready to go. And the Panthers defense, just terrible. Just terrible out there. They're going to be able to get these chip shot field goals and probably not score touchdowns, which is what you want. You want threes. You don't necessarily want the extra points. This is a perfect matchup. And like I said, only 3% rostered on Sleeper right now. Excellent, excellent value. Go out there and get him. If you don't have a kicker, if you're streaming a kicker each and every week, I think this is the guy that you can go after. All of these guys should have great weekends for you. I'm excited. I'm ready. We're going to be back here every single week. I'm going to be giving you my favorite kickers. So again, we got all your fantasy content covered over here on The Catch. If you haven't already, check out our must starts and sits at running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end. We got you all covered. Daily fantasy content. If you haven't already, hit that sub button so you can keep up with all the action each and every week from us. Make sure you have bragging rights this year. When you go undefeated, bring home that title, and your friends are like, man, how did you do it? How are you so dominant? You're just so lucky. Nah, you know it was all about us here on The Catch. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you guys tomorrow.